Hey Tulsa, you have been holding philosophical cafés and philosophical workshops for many years now. So I wanted to tell us how is the dynamic of the sessions of the philosophical cafés in general.
You asked me how I begin the cafes, and so they are free of charge. They don't have to sign up, so we don't know how many people are coming. The theme or the question for each session is posted ahead, and I start off with welcoming them and telling them for how long the session will be, what theme it will be. I present myself very shortly, and I present the idea of what a community of inquiry is, so that they will not expect to leave from the cafe with all the answers, but rather maybe much more questions, which I will say is potentially also at least partial answers. So you become a bit wiser, and the purpose is to explore together and to build on other people's thoughts, to try to think outside of your usual paths of thinking, and while dialoguing, which is a special type of communication, which is characterized by being very humble, being very curious, being courageous, and taking care when you're listening to what other people are saying.
What is the view of philosophy you have, and how do you think it shows in your philosophical cafés?
I think there is a very fundamental value in practicing dialogue, because I think it's a very specific way of engaging with other people, and I think it has implications for both the person, the individual, in an existential dimension, because it's, giving you some kind of a spirituality in that you are actually examining a lot of times questions that we are all wondering about and exposed to during life. What is the meaning of life? What happens? What is a good person, and how should I live? And unless you're practicing any religion, there aren't really very many spheres or areas where you can talk with other people about those kinds of things. So that's one value, at least, that I perceive in dialoguing, and of course, in saying that it's not only the dialogue but the topics as well, because you're not only practicing this specific type of communication, but you're also examining a topic which is central to human existence.
Can you give an example?
It's not like I'm not usually doing metaphysical topics, but just like a question of what is a home. So that's very practical, and a home is something that we all have a relation to, and so it becomes spiritual, or I don't know if spiritual is a good word, but at least something very not practical, at least, and for sure existential, in that you are examining such a common concept and finding new depths in it. And realizing that a home could be much more than you perceived before, or it could actually have all the prerequisites that a home should have: a door and a floor and a house, but still not be a home because you don't feel, maybe you're abused, or so those kinds of very, very everyday sort of examples and topics. Really, I think they are bound to be, when you're doing a dialogue in the way that I usually think they are, when we're doing it, they become spiritual or existential in a way. I remember one which was really, at least it touched me, but that was a homeless lady who said something about about home, but now I can't remember exactly what she said. But I think everybody in the room were very touched because what she was also kind of well, not healthy mentally, so she bursted out every once in a while and said nonsense stuff, and then she had these moments of clarity, and the fact that we all, you know, listened to her and took her word as something important as well, even though half of the time it wasn't easy to understand what she was saying. So there was double existential, because it was the feeling of a full, we were a lot of people there, and how we still gave her the scene, sort of. And she said something like, you know, my cardboard is also, that's also home to me, and that was it kind of flung us into a new idea of what a home could be.
What moves you to keep holding these philosophical cafes and workshops?
Mm-hmm. It's fun, so it's egoistic, and I think it's, like I said before, I think it's valuable, and I'm assuming that because it's valuable to me. So I'm guessing that I'm not super special in that sense, but that people so need to come together and contemplate sometimes in this specific way. And I think maybe the dialogue is actually the highest value, because it's such an exotic way of engaging with people. So I think it's a great value, and that motivates me, both for the individual, like I said before, but also politically, and that's also a very strong motivation for me, because I think it's one of the fundamental pillar stones of democracy, that people are thinking for themselves and together, and being able also to speak up and formulate thoughts or protests or yeah. So it's political and it's existential for me.
Why do you think philosophical practice is something important to do?
In contrast to academic philosophy, which by necessity is a bit elite, because it's done in universities and not everybody have access to universities. So I think there are both tools in terms of logic and argumentational capacities, as well as well, the topics and the way you're talking about it, and examining stuff actually in philosophy. And I'd say that's actually going on as well within the academy, because the way you're talking about and you're investigating the world or topics or objects, concepts, that's really a cool thing. And I do believe that should be at least available to more people.
Thank you, Tulsa, for your interview.
Thank you for wanting to have me.